In a quiet town nestled among misty hills, a small, long-forgotten house stood on the edge of the woods. Covered in ivy, with its once pristine windows now shattered and its roof sagging, the house had been abandoned for decades. The locals spoke of it only in hushed tones, if they spoke of it at all. Few dared approach it, for rumors of the house's dark past had spread far and wide, and those who had ventured near it were never seen again. One autumn evening, a group of adventurous friends, eager to test their courage, decided to visit the house. They had heard the tales, of course, but they were skeptical. They were not afraid of ghost stories and whispered legends. To them, the house was nothing more than a decaying structure, a relic of the past. They arrived just as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the land. The air was thick with the scent of wet leaves and earth. As they approached the house, the ground was soft beneath their feet, and the trees surrounding the building seemed to lean inward, as if trying to protect the house from the outside world. The door creaked as they pushed it open, revealing a dark interior that reeked of mildew and decay. The faint smell of something older, something more sinister, lingered in the air. The friends laughed nervously, shining their flashlights across the dusty walls and broken furniture. They made their way through the house, exploring room after room, each one more eerie than the last. It was as if the house had not only been abandoned by its owners, but by time itself. In the center of the house was a large sitting room. It had a grand fireplace, though the hearth was cold and empty. The walls were lined with faded portraits of people they couldn't recognize, their eyes seeming to follow them as they moved. And there, in the middle of the room, stood an old, full-length mirror. Its frame was ornate, made of dark wood that had aged with time. The glass was cracked, but it still seemed to reflect the room with an unnatural clarity. One of the friends, curious and daring, stepped closer to the mirror. The others warned him not to get too close, but he ignored them. As he peered into the reflection, he noticed something strange. The room behind him looked different in the mirror, darker, colder, as if it were trapped in another time. His heart raced as he leaned in closer, his breath fogging up the glass. Suddenly, the reflection began to shift. The room and the mirror seemed to move, as if the walls were breathing. And then, the figure of a woman appeared, standing at the edge of the room. She was dressed in an old-fashioned gown, her hair tied back in a style that hadn't been worn in decades. But it was her eyes that drew his attention. They were wide, desperate, and full of sorrow. She reached out toward him, her hands pressing against the mirror, as if trying to escape. The friend stumbled backward, his heart pounding in his chest. He turned to the others, but when he looked back at the mirror, the woman was gone. All that remained was his own frightened reflection, staring back at him. The room felt colder now, the air heavy with a presence he couldn't explain. The others laughed it off, thinking it was just a trick of the light or a figment of their imagination. But the friend couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. He turned to leave, but as he did, he noticed something on the floor, a small, leather-bound book, half hidden beneath a rotting rug. He bent down and picked it up, feeling an odd chill as his fingers brushed against its surface. The pages were yellowed with age, and the writing inside was faded, but still legible. It told the story of the house and its former occupants, a family who had lived there generations ago. But it wasn't the family's history that caught his attention. It was the final entry, written in a shaky hand, as if the person had been terrified to leave their words behind. The mirror is cursed. It holds a soul trapped within. It is waiting for someone to release it. Do not look into the mirror, for it will show you things you are not meant to see. The soul inside the glass is hungry, and it will not rest until it has claimed another. The friend's hands trembled as he read the final words. He glanced back at the mirror, but it was too late. A shadow began to form in the glass, slowly at first, and then more rapidly, until it filled the entire reflection. The woman's face appeared again, her eyes locked onto his. "Help me," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of his racing heart. The friend tried to run, but it was as if the house itself had become alive. The walls seemed to close in on him, and the floor beneath him began to crack. The others were already halfway to the door, but they couldn't hear his cries. He turned back to the mirror, desperately trying to break free from its hold, but the shadow inside had grown too powerful. It reached out, wrapping its cold fingers around his body, pulling him toward the glass. His screams echoed through the house as he was sucked into the mirror, disappearing from sight. The others turned to see what had happened, but when they looked back at the mirror, all they saw was their own terrified reflection staring back at them. The mirror was silent once more. The friends never spoke of the night again, but the house remained, standing in the woods, its secrets buried within its walls. And the mirror, the cursed mirror, still hung there, waiting for the next person to look into it. The soul within still hungered, and it would not stop until it had claimed them all.